Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Dr. Jade Teta, and the question is, what about intermittent fasting for women? I get questions about this all the time. Hey Jade, I know intermittent fasting is supposed to work really well for men. What about us women? Well, here's the interesting thing. Intermittent fasting can work tremendously well for women. Obviously, it can be a wonderful approach. However, other women can crash and burn on such a regime, and I want to help you understand if that may be the case for you and why things are a little different for women when it comes to eating regimes like intermittent fasting. Here's the first thing that you need to understand. Men, when they hit puberty, are pretty much in the same hormonal state all the way until they hit andropause as an elderly man. Women, once they hit puberty, they go through many other changes. Puberty, pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, stress reactions. Oftentimes, obviously, their hormones change throughout the month, and this will impact how well a dietary regime will work for them. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Dieting and exercising can be stress reducing. However, it can also be something that elicits a stress response. When you take a regime too far, if you overtrain, if you undereat, these things can become a stress to the physiology. And women, unlike men, have a more sensitive stress system. And this makes sense because women are the gender of childbearing and child rearing. And so their metabolism is a little bit more into surveillance and looking around the environment and saying, is it safe? Is it appropriate? Is there enough sort of relaxing and regenerative sort of inputs in my life to have a baby? Or is it constantly stressful? And this is what their hormones do. And so I often like to think about estrogen and progesterone, the two main female hormones here, as two sisters, twin sisters, but non-identical. And one twin sister is very resilient and rambunctious and adventurous and wanting to go out and explore the world and can handle stress and can handle over-exercising and can handle when calories are too low and or calories are too high. She's a little bit more resilient and strong and courageous in that regard. Now, her other sister is a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more worried and wants to make sure estrogen doesn't get in trouble. And so when estrogen is around, women can handle more stress. But when progesterone is around, women can handle less. And so you can imagine during the first half of the cycle, what happens is estrogen is up. It's up in the first 2 weeks of the cycle. Progesterone is low, but after that, progesterone peaks. And then progesterone starts to dominate. So right away, you can see that at least in younger menstruating women, there are certain times of the month that might be better for intermittent fasting or any kind of regime that depletes nutrients or takes energy out of the system. They would handle that better in a more estrogen state. Now, obviously, too, when women go into pregnancy, they become a little bit more progesterone dominant. And in breastfeeding, they do as well. Now, at perimenopause, progesterone falls down and is pretty much flatlined, but estrogen has this very volatile sort of jumping around sort of way of behaving at perimenopause, which means it's unpredictable how intermittent fasting or things like that might impact a woman at that time. Of course, at menopause, both of these hormones fall. Now, that doesn't mean that intermittent fasting won't necessarily work, but I did want you to be aware of the fact that these hormones are impacting women differently than the way they're impacting men. So how would you know then if intermittent fasting for you is appropriate? Well, obviously, most people are intermittent fasting for several reasons, mainly to be healthier and lose weight. And so there's 3 ways that you can kind of tell whether intermittent fasting is going to work for you as a woman. First of all, the first thing that you kind of want to sort of understand here is, does intermittent fasting cause increased hunger and cravings? Remember, hunger and cravings are hormonal things. And so if you have increased hunger and cravings, this is highly correlated with an increased stress response. And so if your hunger and cravings go so high that you can't control your intake of food and you go on an intermittent fasting regime and then you end up binging like crazy, that's an indication that it's a little too stressful for you. And you may actually find that certain times of the month when estrogen's dominating, intermittent fasting doesn't upset hunger and cravings. But other times of the month, it does when progesterone is dominating. So that's one thing to look out for. The other thing here is weight loss is another indication here. If you're going to lose weight and keep it off, you want two things. You want calorie reduction and you want hormonal balance. So if that is the case, you should be able to lose weight pretty easily on intermittent fasting. Now, many women know this. They do intermittent fasting. They may not feel excessive hunger and cravings, but the weight doesn't come off. That's partly as a result of having and eliciting certain stress hormones that reduce your ability to lose weight, make you a little bit more insulin resistant, or silently make you eat a little bit more without you being aware. So if your hunger and your cravings don't go through the roof or actually get better on intermittent fasting, that's a good sign. If you also begin to lose a little weight, that's a good sign. And the final thing here is something that I call SHMEC. It's a funny little acronym that stands for sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and cravings. Now, we've already talked about the hunger and the craving aspect of this. We know that those tell us a little bit about hormonal balance and estrogen and progesterone, but so does sleep, mood, and energy. So when your SHMEC is in check, when you're sleeping appropriately, your hunger is balanced, your mood is stable, your energy is predictable and high, and there are no cravings, this is a great indication that you are not under hormonal stress, that your system can handle intermittent fasting really well. However, if your SHMEC goes out of check, you're having sleep disruption, your hunger and cravings are through the roof, your mood is low or anxious, you're having unpredictable and unstable energies while intermittent fasting, this would mean it's not a great thing for you. So you can see that by paying attention to these three things and understanding the biochemistry of estrogen and progesterone, you can determine whether intermittent fasting is best for you.